Good morning and welcome to class 4 of 7 here on painting the dynamic skies that glow. Today we're going to be talking a lot about chroma and saturation in color. Last week we dealt with color temperature, warms and cool colors. And this week we're going to be talking about how the strength of color affects the painting and affects the mood. So like a good example is a very strong, vibrant, colorful painting has a lot more energy than a really subdued painting, right? Like a lot of grays and neutrals, earthy colors. So how do we use that to really create vibrance and interest in our paintings? And how do we combine it? How do we combine strong chroma and low chroma, high saturation and low saturation? So when we are talking about chroma in painting, it refers to the intensity or the purity of color. A high chroma color is bright and vivid, while a low chroma color is muted or grayish. Artists use chroma to create depth, mood, and focus, making it a powerful tool in storytelling on the canvas. There you can tell I'm reading my notes that I handed out to you guys here. By manipulating chroma, we can draw attention to the focal point or to where we want the viewer to focus. And we often in that area will use the higher chroma or the stronger colors or a deeper saturation of color. Just as a clarifying point, when we're talking about chroma, actually here, let's just jump to our notes or my examples here. So I'm just going to pull this up. And we will look at some examples here. So I'm going to do a share screen. We're going to pop over to my example. So everybody sees this whole page full of examples.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
All right. So last week we talked about color temperatures, right? The warm colors and the cool colors and how we can use those to make, if you use a lot of cool colors, it'll make the warm colors more special. If you have a lot of warm colors, then the cool colors can become more special, right? The same thing is going to be with chroma and saturation in our paintings. So if you have a desaturated painting, but a little bit of an area of saturation, then you are going to make that area special. You're going to make it stand out, or eye will be drawn towards it. Again, in painting, we are the storyteller, right? We're creating a narrative in some way, right? And we want to not only guide, but we want to lead the viewer through our painting. And there's a bunch of different ways we can do that through design, through values, through color temperatures. And again, now we're going to be talking about saturation and chroma. So hue is just another way of saying the name of the color, right? So if you're looking at a color and your brain just goes, oh, that's red, that is the hue. That is the name of the color, right? The value, of course, is just the light and the darkness of a hue. All right, we talk a lot about that in my design class, and I do a lot of underpaintings where that is my primary focus. I do think that values are, it goes design is the most important thing, design and composition. And then I think values are the most important thing above that. And then we start talking about color or hue. We talk about saturation or the chroma of the color, how pure or grayed down it is. So here it is. So saturation is the intensity or purity of a hue, right? Or a color. This is where I think that art instruction gets a little unnecessarily complicated, because I don't know why we say hue instead of just the color, right? The name of the color. But and I do believe that chroma and saturation can be used interchangeably when we're talking about our paintings. There are differences, but the truth is that saturation kind of covers a lot of that terminology. So you'll see me kind of bouncing back and forth, but really chroma is like the strength of the color and how grayed down it is. So a grayed version of this red is a low chroma, and saturation we can use to we can neutralize the colors more with using colors across the color wheel. So shade, we're going to talk a little bit about that today. A shade is produced by adding black or a dark color. We were just talking about what's his name, the artist that has the book that you guys are just looking at here, and he uses a lot of shade and also
Mitchell Alba.
Yeah, Mitchell Alba uses a lot of shade and tint in his pictures, where he's just kind of got almost monochromatic, meaning one color, but he's just using light and dark versions of it with slight temperature shifts. We're going to be talking a lot about using tone to control the saturation and chroma of a painting. And if you've been with me for a while, you know I rarely use black in my paintings. But today we're actually going to introduce black a little bit more as an idea of, when I use black like today and use different grays, it is a great way to actually neutralize a color without sending it towards the browns. And a lot of my favorite colors are very vibrant colors that I just gray down a little bit. Some of my favorite colors, again, if you've been with me for a while, you know, are grayed down pinks. I just love them. And I love grayed down greens, kind of like an avocado green, slightly grayed down. And again, I think it's because of the colors that my great grandmother had in her kitchen. I just thought were so beautiful as a little kid. And it's funny how we gravitate towards these things. But I found that the easiest way to make those colors is literally by using black, white, plus that color, right? Making a gray and then controlling it. So that would be a great experiment for you guys this week. For those of you who have the time and are wanting to try a couple different things, is to pick one or two colors and then use black and white to gray them down. And to see, you'll make these really beautiful colors. A lot of times when I'm making a purple that's just overly bright, overly vibrant, just, you know, too much purple, I can neutralize it by adding yellow, right? Because it's the color across the color wheel from it. But a lot of times it becomes a brownish color. So a lot of times I will actually add a little bit of black, a little bit of white to it, and I get these really beautiful kind of subtle purples. So when we are mixing a black and a white or a gray with our paint, I want you to be aware that you're not just making it less vibrant, you're creating another color, right? I've talked a lot about if you add black or white, even independently of each other, you are cooling down the color, right? White is very cool. And so just being aware of that as you're working here. All right, so oftentimes and most of the time when I am neutralizing my colors on my painting, because if you look at most of my work, the colors on it are mostly neutral, kind of, I like to think of them the colors that exist within the color wheel. So if we mix this yellow with this kind of bright, warm purple, right? Towards the middle, they begin to gray down and also kind of take on a browny, earthy color a little bit, right? So a lot of us, especially the beginning students, the work exists in this outside color field, right? They just don't understand color mixing. They kind of feel like if I don't have the color in a tube, it's difficult. You know, they don't even think to make it. They just, you know, want the color directly. So think about mixing across the color wheel. And then again, I'm going to introduce the idea of adding gray to the colors when it's suitable and when it works. And a lot of times I do make my own, what I would consider very dark color, whether I'm using a warm red, a blue, and a yellow. mixed together to make it dark, or whether it's ultramarine blue and transparent earth red to make it dark, whatever it is. But sometimes just having a, a black or I love Payne's gray or a chromatic black from Gamblin, if you're an oil painter, is a great way to also make a color just kind of settle down a little bit. All right, we talked last week about the color temperature and using analogous colors, right? So a lot of times you can just make these beautiful, very harmonious paintings by using analogous color schemes. But let's just say this was your color scheme, this yellow, yellow, green, or green, yellow, green, and blue, green here. If I wanted to neutralize those colors, I could actually just, again, lean across the color wheel and add a touch of red. When you live in Oregon or the Pacific Northwest or Ireland or somewhere where, there's just so much green, I like to think that red is the great modifier. If you add a touch of red to any of these colors, all of a sudden you have this whole new color scheme that really opens it up and makes the colors a lot more earthy and what I think of as naturalistic. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
And then if I was using this analogous color scheme, by throwing little bits of these warmer, redder, purple colors into the painting as little spots of color, all of a sudden the painting really comes to life.
Mm.
All right, so let's look at some photos here. And we're going to be talking about, this is, I think, from Mary in Australia here. If, I didn't write down the names because a lot of these are your guys' photos that you've added to our Padlet. But I want to talk about, how is...
that one was my one. Sorry.
Oh, that's yours. All right, great. All right.
Took it on a bus as well, so.
Perfect. So yeah, I want to talk a little bit about how and why our eye is moving across and what we're attracted to, right? So when we're looking at this photo from Louise here, our eye goes right here, doesn't it? First, let me go away from it and we'll come back to it, right? So just pay attention to where does your eye jump to? Yeah. Why do you think our eye goes here first?
It's the brightest spot.
The brightest spot.
Greatest contrast.
Exactly. It's that strong contrast, right? And then our eye kind of shifts and moves along these areas here, right? Again, we've got this warm and cool contrast between the yellowy orange clouds here and the kind of purple gray, blue gray clouds behind them, right? So again, it's contrast. That's that warm, that cool. But what's also happening is when we zoom in, we have very, very yellow, right? Quite pure color. And as we go away from the light source, all the colors become more earthy, more grayed down, and more quiet. So if we were to ask, let's just say a young person, a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, what colors do you see? They would say, I see orange, I see yellow. And as they get out here, they'd say, I see blue. And they would even probably say that they see green, even though they really don't, right? They're they're greenish, but they're very earthy, right? And again, there is some blue in this and some kind of purple, but it's not strong. It's very grayed down, very neutralized. So that's what I'm talking about the strength of chroma or the saturation of color. That makes sense, you guys? We'll look at a couple other examples here. I also did some edits on some of these scenes that I could do as little demos today. So here's my altered version of it. I grabbed some square format panels to paint on this week. And I just kind of warmed up some of the colors. I personally probably wouldn't put these rays of light. I'm guessing that's a slightly either on the window of the bus is a little bit dirty or the camera lens is a little bit dirty. I might hint at a little bit of this, but if I saw this painted, fairly closely to what we're seeing here, I would think that they are painting from a photo, right? Sometimes we do get those rays of sun, but this one just feels like it's catching the little bit of the oil or dust on the camera. You do get some nice rays back here that feel a little more naturalistic versus these rays that are coming right at us. So, and it's fine to put them in if that's what really attracts you to this, is these laser beams kind of shooting up towards the source. But I want you to question, especially when you're working from a photo of, is this an effect from the camera? Is this an effect from, you know what I mean? So we're painting it how we want to see it. All right. So when we look at this one, where do you guys see a strong, pure color?
In the trees.
Right, or in the grass.
In the grass with the trees, yeah.
Right, so this is a fairly pure green, right? A little on the dark side. But look at the trees here. I could use this green, and if I add red and maybe a touch of blue to darken it, but you see how much grayer? And it's kind of a low chroma, low saturation, but dark, right? So when we're talking about saturation and chroma, we're not always just talking about how light or dark it is, but we can use those in our painting because the sky is really quite light and nothing is really bright. You can see the little hand, the little pointer up there, how, there's a lot of room. I could make this painting much, much lighter, right? I can go much closer towards white. But because these darks are so dense, it really makes, even though the sky is not truly so light, it makes it appear very light in comparison. And again, all these colors are desaturated. All right, here's the photo I took. This is looking over the Columbia River Gorge, and it was, low clouds, high clouds, all sorts of different clouds. The sun is rising somewhere back in here. It makes these crazy little monster eyes and
Beautiful.
Funny in there. But yeah, really interesting. This is one I have not painted yet. I have not quite been brave enough, but I would love to attack it as a big painting, right? I think this would just look monumental because this is just this grand vista. But and then what happened here is when we're using our photo to take these pictures, right, to get this subtle, soft delineation and soft edges, what happens is it just blasts out the highlights, right? And I don't remember it being so yellow. I do remember it being more pinks and peach colors and some more reds. But a lot of times, especially with my old iPhone, it would just take those colors and turn them to orange or yellow, right? So I know that. So when I do paint this, I can use my memory, I can use my experience, I can use just the fact that I think these crazy bright, again, I just see this as two kind of almost evil eyes up here. I can make changes to this. But what is going on is that we have 90% of this image is desaturated, lots of cool grays, purple, blues. And then we have these couple areas of high contrast, high saturation colors. All right, so here we have a very warm image, right? There's areas of cool and dark, but a lot of this is very warm pinks. But if I painted this upper portion of the sky and I just did a quick note to myself, okay, what color is that? Oh, it's blue, right? And I squeezed it out of the tube. These look really crazy, right? They have to be subtle. They have to be grayed down. They have to be calm and quiet so that this area really gets to sing. So here's a painting dealing with, or a photo dealing more with lights and darks. right? There is color, right? If I asked you what colors are in this painting, you'd be like, I kind of see some yellows, I kind of see some pinks, mostly gray. So do you guys understand how, if I wanted to paint something like this or use this as a reference, that it's almost all desaturated, low chroma colors with just a little bit of areas that are stronger, but none of them are bright, bright pink, right? Let's see if I can put a bright pink on there. Guess it's, oh, here we go. I need to pick a tool. How do I get a color? There we go. So let's grab a bright pink and just put it on here. Right? You see that? How it's just so much brighter. So even though it reads as, you know, very pink and very yellow, it really isn't. Let's choose a yellow and put it on there. So it's all relative.
Mm.
Isn't that interesting?
Very.
And very important too. Oh, I guess I need to.
Wow.
Yeah, just a number of different photos. This one was taken through my sunglasses. That's why we're getting these really high contrasts, and it makes the blues a lot darker. But I really like this transition of the light kind of rolling across here. Some of it feels like it's more in shadow, some of it's more in light. But none of the colors are super saturated, right? The whole foreground and a lot of these warm colors within the, you know, away from the bright light are kind of a desaturated, kind of an earthy, almost kind of a yellowy, ochery, mixed with a bit of a oxide brown, transparent earth brown. And here's one that's almost monochromatic, right? Again, if you were just to describe this to somebody that wasn't seeing the painting, you'd say it's purpley gray, right?
Yeah.
You can see that it has this large area of, you know, darks all the way to bright, bright, brights. So we don't need a lot of color to get a lot of impact, right? Values come in, saturation, meaning, you know, how intense that color is, but none of these colors are really saturated, are they? There's no bright purple, there's no bright yellow. Here's another one that I really like. I mean, it's got some weird shapes in here. This was another one, just like Eloise, taken from, you know, a car driving across the big bridge. But I really, really like the fact that it's quite monochromatic, right? It's almost a black and white photo with these kind of little bits of blue, little bits of warm. Let's see if we can find some that are high chroma. All right.
Wow.
So here we go, right? And this reminds me of your work, Regini. I just heard you say, wow. Regini likes her little punches of color, and, you know, it makes her work stand out. Regini's one of the true colorists in our class, right? Her skies are just so beautiful and dynamic. And Regini is attracted to, correct me if I'm wrong, Regini, you can slap me across the internet here if you need to. But it's these bright, warm colors, these little high chroma, or, you know, much more pure yellow, right? And then you've got these combinations of the gray blues, gray purples that really make that sing, right? If you've been a student with me, you've heard me talk about the diva of the painting, right? A lot of my paintings have a focal point. And I like to think of it as the diva of the painting. It's this, you know, it's the main star. It's the lady that gets her name on the, you know, underneath the on the sign before you go into the show, right? It's about, you're going to see her, but you're going to have all these supporting characters that help her, whether you decide the diva's here, or maybe there's two lead roles. But you need all of these other supporting cast characters to make these special. What I find so often with beginning students is they're just so excited by color, right? Oh my gosh, look at all these gorgeous, pure colors as I squeeze them out of the tube. But the truth is, if everything's special, nothing's special, right? If these blues were bright blue and these purples were bright purple and these were bright blue, right? It would just be a rainbow of crazy. So we need those grays, those neutral colors to make these brighter areas really sing. There's another one that's mostly grays. You know, we got these cool, subtle blues. They're not blue out of the tube. They've been, you know, there's white added to them, a little bit of gray added to them. And then you have these, you know, again, the light's shining behind the clouds, hitting up underneath some of them. And it really makes it beautiful. I like this painting photo a lot, but there's this huge area here. So I'd have to figure out, let's just look at that. Let's see, I want to be able to see you guys. I'm going to change my view just really quickly. So if I was going to paint this, I would go through really quickly, Rebecca, this is for you a little bit here, is I would say, you know, what do I like? Why did I actually take this photo besides just these big, huge, these are huge waves. This is during a storm surge that, you know, the sky cleared up, but the waves were still gigantic. They don't look huge because we're like 40 feet up. But I would say, okay, what do I like? I love this contrast of these warm and cool colors, these higher chroma and lower chroma colors, these, you know, more saturated yellows versus these desaturated blues, right? I also really like this wave is really interesting. What do I not like? These rocks are interesting, but they're just kind of doing a little bit of a peekaboo at the bottom, right? They're just kind of, you know, they're in there. I just didn't I didn't edit the photo as I was taking it. I just grabbed the scene. So maybe what I would do is crop in so I capture these waves. I got to figure out, I kind of like this angle of this cloud coming in.
Yeah.
I think it just adds a little more movement. Otherwise, there's a little bit of an angle here, but otherwise it's a lot of horizontal lines. You have a bit of an angle here, a bit of an angle here. Rebecca, did you get a chance to watch the video on gesture and movement in the painting? So I kind of like that, right? If everything's horizontal, the painting becomes very quiet, very still. So I'm going to see what happens if I take that, that angle out, right? It's okay, but I kind of like it. Let's see what happens if I go over here and take it out. All right, now I kind of like it better, right? Because I have this line, I've got this line and a lot of horizontals, a little bit of a diagonal here. And again, I can play this up, right? I can move things around as I'm painting. So that's kind of one of the ways that I look at painting. So we're gonna do that here again in just a second with a couple others. All right, so this again is another photo from Cannon Beach, I believe. Yep, Cannon Beach, which is a town that has one of my galleries, and we spend a lot of time out there. I just love it. And what I really like is they get kind of a marine layer that moves in a lot of times at sunset. And it makes a lot of people kind of angry, like, oh man, we were gonna get this beautiful sunset and the fog rolled back in. But I love what it does to edges, right? These just softening of edges, because you get these crisp edges of this guy and this little kid here compared to soft edges. And look at what happens in the hills as they go back. You get all these soft edges. And I love that. I just love what atmosphere does to the edge quality, and like, see how dark they are. And then it just gets lighter and lighter and lighter and all the way back. How would you, Kim Hunt, how would you describe these colors? Again, to somebody that's not seeing them, right? How would you describe this picture?
Well, I would say there's definitely like pinky colors in there and grays and very light blue, and it's kind of misty. And the feeling would be like, I don't know, peaceful, serene kind of feeling to it.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And what I noticed is how you described it is you said like pink-y. Like I always like to say I paint the ish colors, pink-ish, blue-ish. You know what I mean? None of my colors really have a name. I mean, I can name them all I want, but you know what I mean? They're not out of the tube, right? Good job, Kim. All right. Isn't that fun?
Oh,
Reflection is just gorgeous, right? And this is again kind of a low chroma, low saturation, right? None of the colors are bright, bright, bright. None of these colors are out of the tube. They've all been grayed down or neutralized a little bit. All right, this is from Linda Camarada, right?
yes.
Isn't that beautiful? I mean, who would not stop the car to watch the sunset, right? But what do we have? This is the opposite of what we've been talking about, right? This is high chroma, right? I could almost be squeezing some of these colors out of my tubes of paint, right? These yellows are about as yellow as can be. These pinks and oranges are really high. These blues, you know, there's a little bit of a white and maybe a touch of yellow added to them, but high chroma. And high chroma, I mean, just again, let's go back to this. What happens when you look at this? Your heart rate slows down almost, your breathing slows down. And all of a sudden we jump to this and it's bang, it's exciting, right? Not only in the gesture and the movement, the angles of the clouds, but also in that strength of color, right? It's hard to not look at it. So there's a lot to be said for strong chroma, strong saturation, strong colors. But we want to use it as a tool, and we want to learn when, you know, when we can desaturate a color and when maybe we should be pushing a color. Again, am I making sense, you guys? Is this working for you here?
Yep.
All right, so look at that. Both photos by Linda. What a difference. And what's interesting in this one is the highest chroma is in the blue, right?
Yeah.
The blue is the most pure of the colors. All these other colors, just like Kim said, are the pinky purpley, the, you know, all these other, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to even name these colors right up in here. But yet there is color. Again, you can see the white arrow that they're not white. So there's a bit of color. And then you've got this nice yellow. Is that a moon, you think, Linda? I think
It's
it
a
is.
moon setting in the morning.
There you go. And
That's
again,
interesting because the blue is on the bottom.
That's
yeah,
more.
it's all, you know, it's often about atmosphere,
Mm-hmm.
about the angles of the light. I think that what's happened is the sun is set below the earth, right? None of these are catching strong light, but the moon is still catching the sun's light, right? Around the,
This
This
is
is
this,
like
Michael, this is
shadow.
the west side. This is the west side, and the sun was coming up brilliant yellow over on the east side.
right. Yeah, exactly
Sun was
right. But it's
getting
not hitting
reflected.
the earth anymore.
Right. The sun was reflecting on the, I guess, in the dome on the moon, making it look yellow. Before, earlier, like at 3 o'clock in the morning, it looks white.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And so what's happening is all of the earth is in shadow.
Yeah.
But the moon is still catching that little bit of light. But I almost believe that this blue might be even the shadow of the earth being cast into the atmosphere. I'm not positive about it.
You nailed it.
All
That's-
right.
Yeah.
And again, this one's a lot stronger, right? This one kind of reminds me of the glazing we did last week over where I just glazed red over the whole painting and made the warm areas warmer, made the blues turn to purples. But it's, you know, kind of spotty, kind of interesting. You have these strong darks, strong lights. But again, seeing the cursor, how much lighter it could be, right? So we're dealing with the saturation, these strong yellow, strong peachy oranges. Oh, let's look at down here.
Mm.
Reflections are beautiful.
Yeah, aren't they?
Oh, and I love that.
Right. Cannon Beach again. Those are those rocks that we are looking at. That's that little water that the guy and his kid were walking by. But I really just, I love, and this looks like Graham. I already see Graham's like, oh, I'm going to paint that one. He loves his big clouds and the little break on the side there, which is just awesome. But I love also, let's just look really quickly. When we are looking off in the distance, right? Those clouds are huge. right? Probably. They're just
Yeah.
far away, right? They're close to the horizon. So clouds often will get smaller towards the horizon. And then we have one big heavy cloud. You got a couple in the midground here. Then you have this one big belly of a cloud that we're looking underneath this cloud, right? We're looking at the sides, looking at the beginning of the belly here a little bit. And then as this cloud is probably directly over our heads as well, right? It's probably sucking up the whole sky. And we're seeing
Now, would you
under,
paint that entire top? Would you, or would you crop that?
I mean, I think that it, again, this is the Bella, you know, Bella Ballerina, this is the Belladonna, this is the diva, right?
Yeah.
And so now it's a huge supporting cast, right? Or I could zoom in. So I don't know. I actually
Almost
like
dramatic.
the massiveness here. I think it really helps tell that story. But yeah, it might not be necessary. It would probably just depend on when I was looking at it and wanting to see. Want to try editing it real quick and see what happens?
It's up to
So
you.
here it is as the whole, which I really like. But let's just say, you know what, this is, I mean, when I put the lines on there, 2/3 of that painting from the, you know, is just dark, scary clouds, right? So let's take it to a 50-50. Let's change the, now it's 1/3 ground. It's cool. I like it, but it doesn't seem to have that same impact, right?
Yeah.
Take
So
it
I
to
don't
the other side.
Ooh.
That other cool cloud is in there.
Yeah. And then you still get the light.
Hmm.
That better.
Yeah. Yeah, it might make a nice panoramic.
Sure would.
Yeah, that's what I just love editing pictures and just experimenting with, you know, what if. So a lot of times I will spend quite a bit of time moving images around, zooming in, zooming out. All right, so this one is very much a gray, overcast, kind of typical Oregon cool spring day here where we get a lot of rain, a lot of atmosphere. But what's neat, as opposed to having like that little dash of sunset peeking through, what do we have here? We have a high chroma clover field instead, right? So again, it's kind of an interesting painting because if you were to describe this painting, you'd be like, oh, it's a farm field filled with clover with a couple oak trees and some pine trees, right? But truthfully, 80% of this painting is just, our photo is just a big gray sky. So it's kind of interesting. Let's see what happens if we zoom in and say, you know, what is the painting about? It's about the clover, right? So that could work, but it definitely changes the impact of having that.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I'm asking you guys, you know, what is this painting about, you know, and then maybe we should zoom in or crop in or focus on that area. But truthfully, even though I would say this painting's primarily about the clover, I think that this really helps.
Definitely.
So lots of questions, and then none of the answers are right. You know what I mean? If we all painted this and had free, you know, ability to edit and crop and move things around, we may completely all choose different elements within this. Really like this one. I'm not sure if, is this Graham, did you post this one?
I wish. No.
Okay. I don't know where this image is from. I don't think I took it. Just popped up on my screen, and so I grabbed it. But I
Okay.
really love this. And what's going on here is underneath these clouds, you have a lot of atmosphere, right? A lot of kind of wet air. that is reflecting and the light's bouncing around within there from the setting sun. And then it has this very quick change, you know, once you get out of the clouds to this clean, pure area that's got the yellows going up into the cream colors, up into the gray blues, up into the more bluey blues up here. But yeah, I really like this image. Kind of want to paint that sometime or use this as an element. So a lot of times, Rebecca, what I'm doing too is I just gather super amounts of references. I'm sure probably we all do now. And I might, you know, just throw these clouds, but put them in a completely different situation. Or, you know, this is another one where maybe I would zoom in because this part's, you know, the interesting part, really, right? But I kind of, again, like all this quiet area that makes this really special. But it's an interesting one because our focal point's right in here, which is almost in the corner and almost on the bottom.
Could almost be a vertical.
Yeah, let's try it. Like that.
I think could be.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, again, my instinct would be to be kind of push in on it like this, or, you know, something like that.
And put a reflection in a creek.
There you go. Well, yeah, if you're me, you would. Is
I'm
it a
beginning
painting if
to-
it doesn't have a creek in it? I don't know.
I'm beginning to do that.
Here we go.
There
Speaking
we
of,
go.
Here it
Yep.
is.
This is a painting that Regini's used already in one of her previous classes with me. This is a wetlands just over the hill from where I live, a big protected birding area. And I like to go there. It's really easy for me to get to, 15-minute drive and 200-yard walk. And I'm to this little beautiful scene with sunrise. So this is one I might kind of use as well as for a demo today. Oh, here, I wanted to show you guys editing in other ways as well. So I'm going to do adjustments. So I really like this, right? I like these higher chroma colors in this area, going to these blues and grays over here. The pinks and warm colors get grayed down here. But what if well, first one I want to do is I've got my line a little bit here. So I'm just going to straighten it out. So there we go. So now the ground is a little straighter, and I can experiment. And this is just a free software on your image. When you double click, you can, for most of us, you have a free editing software. And I use it a lot as a really quick one. If I want to get a little more involved, I might use Photoshop or some other application, but this is just kind of a quick, dirty run and gun. But a lot of times I'll just kind of experiment, like I like it, but could it be more interesting if it's a little brighter, or what if it's a little darker, right? What if the contrast is even stronger and it makes the ground areas darker? Or what if it's, oh, I kind of like that. It's getting quieter, right? Is everything, if this makes it a little more punchy? Cool those highlights so the sky is not so dramatic, or it can make the sky, once it starts bleaching out like that, I usually will bring it back. Can make my shadows really dark, or I can find the information in there a little more. Vignette works better. Vignette meaning make the corners dark. Usually works better when your light's in the middle. If the light's off to the side, I rarely use vignette. All right, so here's where I really want to play is in the saturation. What we're talking about today in the class is the strength of the color, right? It already feels pretty saturated, right? These colors are pretty vibrant. But what happens if I jack them up? It becomes crazy, in my opinion. But some of you guys might be like, oh, I like that. It's much more exciting, much more dramatic. I might actually lean towards this. right? I like my paintings generally a little more meditational, a little more quiet. And again, that's not right or wrong. That's just what I kind of prefer, what I gravitate towards. You know, if you saw the clothes I wear, they're always browns and greens and grays and low chroma colors. I feel weird when I put on a bright red shirt, or for St. Patrick's Day, putting on a bright green shirt. It just feels awkward and uncomfortable to me. So, but you know, a lot of you guys, I'm sure, are just, you know, don't go outside unless you got your bright red clothes on. Right? I mean, this is the kind of art I see a lot online, right? Where people just punch up the colors. And I don't know if they just don't understand saturation and chroma, or if they're just attracted to really strong, high contrast colors. So okay, so here's where it started. And isn't that funny how all of a sudden this feels so much grayer than it did when I opened it? Because we've seen it under strong saturation. All right, so which one of you guys is a color lover in this group? I know Linda Camarada, you are.
Regina.
I am.
Jeannie is. Cheryl, you're not scared of color either. You like
No,
your
I'm
icon.
not afraid of it, but I don't know.
All right. So how about you, Regina? I'm going to put you here. You're going to be my color person. So here's our base photo.
Uh-huh.
I start jumping up the saturation. Tell me if you like it or if it's getting a little too crazy.
I
Like
think
where-
it is.
I like it.
It is too strong, I think.
Over here.
I still like it.
This is good.
Okay, so you like it kind of in its base layer. Does anybody like it? Graham, I hear you saying you kind of like it a little more punchy.
Yeah, I like a little more color. And
Yeah, that's
It
great.
gives-
And that's what I love about, you know, art is, again, we could all paint this picture and we'd all have, you know, Gail would have all earth colors, and, you know, and Graham and Regini would have it bright and colorful. And I love that. I think that's what's so great about it. I love going out with groups to paint, and, you know, we're all looking in the same painting and then, you know, same image. And when you get it done, everybody's got a totally different, it's like, yeah.
Like, were you all really all at the same spot at the same time?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Gail, let's talk to you now. So I've got it back to here. Did you like it a little more punchy, or would you like it a
That's
little?
plenty, right? Yeah.
And then if
I
I
would
know
probably
Gail,
punch up, I like the top part the way it is, but I might punch up the yellow a little bit more.
Mm,
Just-
right.
mhm.
That's what
And I don't know if you can control that.
do a little bit of this with just
Yeah.
shifting the warmth of the image.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful too.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Yeah.
And then we can bring back some of those purples by just changing the tint a little bit.
Mm,
And again, you know, just because I change it doesn't mean I need to change the whole thing. Just like Gail was saying, right? I could bring in, you know, bring these back to greens and other colors. I could bring back some of these purples. But this is, again, in the edit process, when I'm just kind of brainstorming the what if. You know, I don't have to paint what I see. I don't have to paint from the photo. It's, you know, that's quite beautiful with making it all very warm. And I like warm colors. I like earthy, warm colors, me personally.
That's the tonalist version.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's
Even that's really beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And if you punched up the orange a little bit, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
That's neat right there. Back
Yeah.
it off a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so fun just to.
Oh, I like that.
Right. There's your greens, Eloise. Oh,
Like the green. I like the green. I
well,
would
maybe I'll-
soften the yellow a little bit.
it's pretty crazy. Anyways, so much fun. So I want you guys to take that extra. I mean, here I am like 3 minutes into just playing with this, and I've got like 4 possible paintings. They're quite different, you know, the same design, but just these different.
That would make an interesting series of paintings to do.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think if I were painting it, maybe closer to in here is kind of what I like.
I like that better, I think.
Yeah.
It's too warm. And then I oftentimes will take my sharpness down, just so I'm not caught up in all the details. A lot of times when I'm painting, I will just take it and then I can bring it back up as I'm working. This, you know, this is high sharpness, lots of detail. It's pulled out, but I just don't care for that as much. Again, personally, some of you guys are going to be more photorealistic. I like soft edges. I like atmosphere. And I also, when I do something like this, I'm invited in to fill this in so I can change, you know, the forms of the trees and all these different things. All right. Or maybe I should save it. Maybe not that cloudy. What do? We tinted it a little here. We've warmed it up quite a bit. Saturation up. No, not for me. Saturation down. Kind of like it there. So I'm just going to save a copy of it.
Yeah, it looks nice.
So when I save a copy, I just add a number or a letter to the end of it. So then it's just there. All right, what picture were we on? And we'll get moving through these a little quicker here again. Yeah, you guys get the idea of it though, right? High saturation, low saturation, and how, I mean, this is a great example. Look how electric these pinks and yellows are, yet most of the painting, look at all these grays over here, little bits of fire. It's just a dynamic painting, right? You got the movement and the clouds. See how the clouds look very horizontal and right along the horizon line, and then as they get closer, they will come up at angles a lot of times. Lovely movement in this very quiet piece. Isn't that interesting?
Painting. What's that?
Yeah, yeah. I don't even understand these clouds. I don't know if this was taken with a little bit of a slow, except for the figures aren't blurred. But these clouds are so wispy up here, just catching a little bit of light.
Wind in the clouds. I see clouds like that a lot here.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, this was a morning I woke up and went and painted sunrise when I was visiting Washington, and just really interesting with big clouds and then these little clouds kind of floating underneath. And look at the water.
Yeah.
Look, that's just a line.
It could be two paintings.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, I, definitely changed. And the sky was changing every minute, right? I mean, I probably took 10 photos throughout the morning because it was changing so quickly. You go out there and you're like, oh, it's beautiful, I got to paint it. And then you're like, oh my gosh, now it's really beautiful, I got to change it. Oh no, it's even better.
I do that every day. We have clouds.
Is that an iPhone photo or a camera?
Yeah, it's just an iPhone photo.
Phew, amazing.
Right. Yeah. So again, just the low saturation sky, higher
Yeah.
saturation with the grays. A lot of times putting the gray clouds in front of the warm areas really gets these neat effects. This is Regini's photo, right, Regini?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I just love this photo, and part of me is like, oh, I would never paint it because, who wants to paint these little posts and trees? But also I was like, well, maybe I would. It's really a weird dichotomy. And there's a lot of artists, Brenda Boylan, one of my good friends, who paints from the, she's a passenger in the car. So she's constantly taking photos. And she actually paints the photo, from the photos in the car where they literally look like it. Sometimes there's even rain on the windshield and stuff. She'll put the raindrops in there and get these weird reflections in each raindrop. Pretty fun. But again, I just love that the top of this is basically all gray tones, almost like a black and white picture. And then as we scroll out, all of a sudden it becomes just super intense, I mean, it's who almost wants to squint when you look at this, right?
Wait.
Gorgeous.
All right, Brett's photo here that he shared, just gorgeous colors.
Wow.
I wouldn't paint the two outhouses probably, but I'm not going to tell you not to.
Those are special, man. I built those things.
Oh, then I would definitely paint them. Yeah.
What are they? They're actually Portland Loos.
What are they?
They are Portland Loos, which are a type of bathroom that you put in parks.
Oh, okay.
And that's Mount Rainier in the background.
So here, let's
Yeah, that's an inside joke.
yeah, nothing against your super gorgeous bathrooms, you know. But
Fresh
let's-
air.
Actually, that statue in the back's got a story too, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool statue. I think
It
all
is.
bathrooms should be fancy. But I just love that color scheme. I mean, just beautiful.
Yeah, it's
And I really like, let's zoom in on these clouds. Look at the
Those are my
colors on these
favorite
clouds.
colors. Oh my God, I love that.
Right. So a lot of times, you know, I'm taking photos on the run, right? You know, I'm a passenger in a car or might even be driving. Don't tell anybody I do that, but or walking the dog, right? And I'll just kind of, oh, that's interesting. Shoot, you know, take the photo without cropping it on the phone. But then I can come back in and figure out, you know, what I could do with it. I'd probably take the sign out and, you know, all this stuff. But I do love these colors. And it might be that I don't paint any of these elements, but I take these colors into another design.
mhm.
All right, Graham, that's another one for you with your big skies and light underneath, beautiful colors.
Absolutely. Yes.
And Regini again. Regini takes lots of photos from the car. How many times have you crashed taking photos?
I'm not driving.
Okay. I just really like this. I mean, we're talking about gesture. Look at these clouds, like the little Nike symbol up here, and
Yeah.
just really feel the air moving. And I this is my kind of color scheme, right? Lots of grays, lots of chromatic grays, which just kind of means colorful grays. I think Mary from
Nice.
Australia sent this one. And yeah, it's beautiful. Again, I don't know quite how I'd edit it. When we get the sun doing, I mean, that's really weird. It looks like Jupiter. It's got a ring around it and the bottom of it dropped
Yeah.
off. But be aware, I see this a lot in your photos, Linda, from sunrise and sunset, as you get this area that's just kind of blasted out, right? Where it overly saturates or desaturates, but it just blasts out the sun. So be aware of that the camera is going to see differently than us. So this one, I just like, this was me, and I think I pushed it on high chroma, which is a setting when you're taking photos, you can push the saturation of colors. But what I really liked is this is very much 3 colors, yellow, blue, green, right? So they're all analogous colors. They're all kind of side by side on the color wheel. It doesn't have any reds, a little bit of brownish, kind of reddish color in the tracks here. But I just, yeah, I haven't ever painted it. But I just thought the color scheme was interesting. Yellow, blue, green.
I love the movement in the.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do go out to this area quite a bit to paint. This is Savi Island outside of Portland. Taught workshops out there and stuff. And like, yeah, I mean, I really love these shapes in here. You know, something like that might be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's the island at sunrise or sunset?
Yeah, sunset.
Sunset. That's just gorgeous.
Yeah, very strong. I mean, those blues are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a mountain or a
Yeah, it's a hill range, not really mountains, just hills. But
It's a
since we
it's a
live in
mountain
Oregon,
to
we
somebody
actually
who
have
lives in Iowa.
mountains. What's that?
It's a mountain to somebody who lives in Iowa.
There you go. Yeah,
That's true.
that's Everest back there.
All mountains are not 14,000 feet.
All
That's correct.
right, this is a photo I took in Italy, actually from
That's
our
beautiful.
veranda or from our
Ooh.
porch. And yeah, it's just beautiful, rocky cliffs.
Wow.
Yeah, and this one, you know, was about the clouds and also that sun ray, you know, and there you got the fingers of God coming down.
Yeah.
You know, and we can crop in, but it really does lose the impact, right?
Uh-huh.
It almost needs these big, scary clouds to
There
make
you go.
this that much more dynamic.
Ooh,
High chroma
That's
up
beautiful.
to grays. Yeah, is this one of yours, Linda? No,
I
this
think-
looks. Oh, this is Savi
No.
Island again, I think.
But
Those
it
are the
looked
same
like
hills that were bright
yesterday.
blue.
Yeah. Yesterday was just orange and blue.
Wow.
That's
So
beautiful.
this one also I took through my sunglasses. A lot of times I do that, especially at sunset, because they have a filter on them that it gets more detail and pushes the contrast in the clouds a little more. But I just really love this interesting color scheme, right? There's so much color or chromatic grays going on, right? And these are all grayed down, beautiful colors in the cool parts of the clouds.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump
There's
from.
Terrible Tilly, the old lighthouse out there.
Wow. That's a whole painting, just that one side.
Right. Yeah,
Many
so much
paintings, many
here.
paintings.
Many paintings, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a fun one. This one deserves to be a big canvas. All
Oh,
right, Oregon coast again.
oh my heart, look at there.
Yeah. And just look over here, the subtlety and the beauty, but it's all low chroma,
Yeah.
right? And almost the whole painting is not, there's no real strong colors. It's just warms and cools and chromatic grays. All right, you guys getting bored yet?
No.
Oh,
All right, this
Oh.
was in Brazil.
ooh, wow.
I thought it was just a very strange, lots of different types of clouds all in the same scene. I've never figured out how to paint this one, what to do with it, because it feels like just this band of floating clouds. Maybe I would crop the top off so I only have two types of clouds. Maybe I would drop a couple of these a little lower so they communicate. I don't know.
Yeah,
I've
they look
always
like popcorn clouds, don't they?
Yeah, they sure do. Yeah, and some floating eyebrows up here, and yeah, it's but this is what's so electric, right? Is you get these grays,
Yeah.
purpley mauve gray, low chroma
Oh.
colors, and then you get this hit
So-
of just bright pink. And you guys know this. You guys have all seen these beautiful pink moons or suns. And usually when you shoot it with your camera, they turn to yellow or white. So the fact that it actually went to bright pink, I just felt really lucky. So I've kept this photo for 8 years, and I've probably used elements of it, but I've never painted it. I actually have a design right now where there's a hillside coming down with some trees kind of growing off it in the foreground more. And that one kind of breaks up this space. I haven't painted it. I don't know. Regina, is this one of yours maybe?
No.
Okay, I don't know whose it is, but this one's in an inverse, right? Oftentimes when you have a colorful sunset, the blues get a lot grayer. But in this one is, we talked about the Maxfield Parrish blue, right? That blue is outrageous, so beautiful.
It is outrageous.
Yeah. All right, here's one of my favorite scenes I've painted references, and this is kind of the design that we used last week when I painted that big crazy sunset, big cloud. But I just love the low saturation. This is a demo I wanted to do for using kind of a single color, right? It's all kind of a yellow to peach to gray. So this is probably the first one I'm going to do is kind of a wipe away for some of the students who haven't seen me do the wipe away as much with the painting. Gail's photo. Just this is another one I've grabbed and kept because I'm going to steal it from Gail at some point. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but I really like it. Here's my crop of it for a square format. Let's really quickly do some adjusting to see what we like. Let's brighten it. Nope, gets too much. Darken it. That's kind of nice a little bit. Can raise the exposure just a touch. Push the contrast to darken that ground if I want.
Yeah.
Gonna lighten it. Makes these clouds. Watch what happens here as I change that contrast back. Becomes much quieter at a low contrast. I don't know where I like it. Kind of maybe just a slightly higher contrast. Highlights, I can lighten them. What? Nope, that looks dumb. Gets again much quieter, but too much. So I got to remember, what is it that I like? Why am I stealing Gail's photo without asking her?
You just,
So
you
what is
just
it?
have a thing for Iowa cornfields, that's all.
I surely do. I think it's my love of corn.
That's what it looks like.
Notice the mountains in the background.
Yeah, look at those mountains, huge. All right, let's punch up our saturation because that's where the most dynamic shifts
I
often.
really like that,
Wow.
not quite that much, but
A little bit more, like right about here, maybe.
yeah,
Not
I
halfway.
think that creates a nice circle.
Yeah, it really kind of keeps us in this area.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can warm it up. Nope. Cool
Nope.
it down. Nope.
Nope.
So a lot of times I'll do those jumps just to go, okay, I like it a little warmer. I don't like it too cool. Makes the blues in the sky a little bluer, makes the clouds even more gray, right? As I warm them up, they go from the bluey gray to a little bit warmer. Can add a little tint to make it a little towards purples, right? That's beautiful, but it's not, I don't love it. And then I can just say, you know what? I kind of like the original version of it.
Yeah.
Maybe just a touch of warmth up there, just to kind of bring the eye up. But another one from Italy.
Wow.
Another one of that crazy, beautiful, windy day. There's terrible Tilly back there again. And this dog, I guess that's a dog. Oh, I guess that's it. Yep. All right. So, any questions on saturation, chroma, and how we can use those to control the viewer's eye and move them through, and how we can, you saw high chroma, meaning strong colors versus low chroma. And again, my preference is generally a combination of the two, thinking of the diva, thinking of who do I want to be special, right? If I want it to be, the diva's on a huge stage with a small spotlight, it'll be a smaller area. Or am I zoomed in on the diva and then, there's less background information? All right. Everybody good? Any questions on that?
No.
Great tour.
A short break, and I will get up to the easel and we will do some painting demos. I was thinking of doing again a kind of a monochromatic where we're talking about saturation, the lights and the darks, and kind of grayed down versus strength of color, and then also doing one that's more punchy and colorful. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Didn't me?
All right, now I just have to figure out where so I can pause it.